Having worked with a lot of young entrepreneurs, I get asked, what are your 4 or 5 pieces of advice to young entrepreneurs? And here is what I think. The very first thing is, a lot of entrepreneurs very proudly say that I've dropped out. I've dropped out of school, I've dropped out of college. So my first reaction is to say, dropping out of college is not a qualification, nor is it a disqualification. What matters is, after you drop out, what are you doing? What did you do? So dropping out as a process is healthy for some people because they are bored by the formal educational system, but education doesn't stop. If you look at any successful entrepreneur, they would say that they probably learn a lot more than they would have learned in the university. Every day they learn. So the very first thing is to bring back your learning into your life, and people learn in different ways. People learn by hearing, people learn by reading, people learn by listening, people learn by other people explaining to them. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how you do it. But learning has to be a continuous process in your life. And that's something you have to get very firmly fixed. And you cannot be a successful entrepreneur without continuous learning. So that's the first point I'd like to make. The second aspect is, a lot of people are bored by operational things, very low-level activities like accounting, reporting, operations. They want to think about the big stuff. As an entrepreneur, it's your responsibility to make sure the organization works, period. Not one part of the organization, not just marketing, not just finance, everything in the organization. So what that requires is very careful attention to detail. Even if it's the most boring thing, you have to attend to that in detail to define the process and make sure there is efficiency in these processes, automation where required. So a careful attention to detail is important, but it's very boring to a lot of entrepreneurs, so they ignore it. So they give it to somebody else and they don't even know sometimes what's happening in operations or what's happening on the ground floor. The third part is that entrepreneurs generally don't like rules. They're broken out, they want creativity, they want to be open, they want to be free. It's all fine. But there are things when you start a business that needs to happen according to certain discipline. Unfortunately, that's the fact. You may come to office late, I suggest you don't, but you want your employees to be there on time. So what message are you sending to your employees if you're careless about it? You don't come on time, you don't keep appointments, you don't keep timing. You can't do that. You can't do that with your suppliers, you can't do it with your investors, you can't do it with your clients. So getting that discipline back into life, dropping out, having that free bird, being very creative is all fine. But there are aspects in a business where one needs to be extremely disciplined. And you'll see that in successful entrepreneurs, they have, in a sense, they're schizophrenic. There are some areas of their activity where they're very creative, they freak out, they do all sorts of things. But there are other parts of the organization where they're brutally disciplined. So getting that balance between discipline and creativity is extremely important for a startup. And that's something you may want to spend some time on and get into your head very firmly, saying that this has to be done. The next point is about managing time and priorities. This is extremely important for an entrepreneur because there will be many things competing for your time, whatever stage you are in. So having a brutal system of prioritization, you can't manage time. Time just keeps running. And all of us have the same amount of time. But what happens is, what do you do within that time? What do you prioritize to do within that time is the only thing you can control. So if you don't have a clear idea about your priorities and say, this is more important for me than this, so I'm not going to do this, I'll do this later, or I won't do it at all. And that becomes very important in terms of prioritization. Starting to look at what's the return on investment on your time. A lot of times we spend a lot of time looking at what's the return on investment on your money, but sometimes you don't look at the return on investment on your time, and that's very important. So low value activities, things that don't add value to you, a lot of fun things that you do not add value. So as an entrepreneur, you might want to look at it and say, I can't do it, even though I love it, I can't do it. So having that very brutal prioritization system to make the best use of your time and prioritization is another very important aspect which the entrepreneur will have to learn. The next one is to use media sensibly, because as an entrepreneur, you will have to talk to a lot of people. You'll be asked questions, you'll have to face the media, you'll have to face the investors, you'll have to face the suppliers. So a bunch of communication skills become very important. And the earlier you invest in them, the better. And what are those communication skills? There are a few things like presentations, then public speaking, media management, negotiations, conflict resolution. These are some of the things that are critical for you, and you'll end up doing every day. Every day you'll be doing one of these things. So building those capabilities and constantly refining them will be a very important part of your toolkit. And if you have more tools in your toolkit, the better you will be in terms of dealing with different situations. The only thing you have a hammer, then you treat everything like a nail. And that's the sad thing if you don't build your toolkit. And the last point I would say is get a mentor if you can. Because mentors can play a very interesting role, very important role in life, especially in the initial years. When you're an entrepreneur, it's pretty lonely up there. There is nobody else. Everything stops with you. You're supposed to make decisions. You're supposed to make tough decisions. And there's nobody you can talk to. And sometimes you cannot discuss these things with your own people. It may not be the right thing to do, especially if there are issues. You don't want them to get upset about issues. You want to solve them. So having an independent person, a neutral person, you can bounce off ideas and get some feedback, and somebody who can also criticize you, saying, why are you doing it like this? Why don't you do it this way? Or what makes you think so? Asking some sensible questions to you so that you have a rethinking on some of the issues before you make a final decision, and also helping you to improve some of the skills, like meeting management is an important one. I've seen consultants or mentors sit through meetings that you conduct and give you feedback to say it could be a lot more effective, because meetings are very expensive. If you cost a meeting, for example, with 10 people attending it, the cost is quite high if you cost all their salaries. So there are several processes on which a mentor can help you become a much better entrepreneur. So I would say these are some of the important ones that come to my mind, and they're definitely worth investing on. Thank you.